Hello class, today we're going to learn about pickleball and the rules and how to play it. So, to start off, pickleball is measured out 40 feet by 20 feet. To give you a reference, it takes up the whole inside space of a tennis court, so you can play it like that. And within this dimensions, there is a small little zone called the no volley zone, which we'll explain later. And then it's also divided up into two squares where people will serve. So, serving. When people serve and start the game, they start from the one square, which is the right square. So say the buttons are serving against the quarters. The buttons, whoever's on the one square, the right side, will serve first. So let's say the buttons are serving, the right side, number one, will serve because he's the first server. So he'll serve to the other team over the net. And when he serves, he's serving underhand. So when he serves underhand, he serves it over and to the other team, and it has to go across to the other number one guy. It has to go across the court. It can't go to him, can't go out of bounds. It has to go straight across to the other team. And so, after he serves it underhand to the other team across, this guy, quarters, he has to let it bounce first. Again, serving underhand over to the quarter, he has to let it bounce first, and then when quarters returns it and serves it back, buttons has to let it bounce too. This is called the two bounce rule. So again, when you serve in pickleball, the person on the right box, number one, serves it across over to the other number one. The receiving end has to let it bounce. They return it back, and when they return it, buttons has to let it bounce on their side. So each team needs to let it bounce at least once before they can volley. Volleying is when the ball is in the air and not bouncing. So imagine like you're throwing like the ball in the air and you're not letting it touch the ground and you're hitting it back and forth with your paddles. That's volleying. If it was to hit the ground, you hit it, hit the ground, you hit it, that's not volleying. So again, volleying, when they're serving, they cannot volley while serving. So like I said again, they serve it, hit it over underhand. Quarters has to let it bounce. He returns it. Buttons have to let it bounce. Two bounce rule. They can't volley until they get that two bounce rule. Now, once they finish the serving and they get the two bounce rule, they can hit it wherever they want. However, you cannot volley in this no volley zone, also known as the kitchen. Remember it by saying stay out of the kitchen. Again, volleying, say they serve it, bounces, serve it underhand, return it, bounces, they hit back and forth, doesn't touch the ground. The quarter scoots up. He cannot stand in the no volley zone and hit it if it does not touch the ground. If it touches the ground, it's fine. He can hit it and stand in the zone. Only if it touches the ground, and he can hit it and stand inside the no volley zone. If it does not hit the no volley zone and he wants to return it, he has to stand behind the line of the no volley zone and hit it in the air. So you can get as close as you can to the line and hit it while it's in the air without bouncing outside the no volley zone. So again, after you get the two bounce rule, you can hit it in the air and volley it as much as you want, but you can't volley inside the kitchen. Okay, next up we have scoring. How do you score? You could score by, or actually scoring, you play ones. Every time you get a point, it's 1 point, no matter what. You can't score 2, you can't score 3. It only goes by ones. It counts by ones. And to win, you play to 11 points, and you can win by 2. In a score, you can only score while you are the serving team. For example, say this team is serving, they serve it underhand, they return it, they serve it underhand, lets it bounce. These guys forget to let it bounce, and they volley it over. The play stops. Quarters get a point, or what's it called? Quarters do not get a point. They stop them from trying to get points, and then it would move over to the next person serving. So, again, you cannot score unless you are the serving team. So, since they prevented them from scoring, they do not get a point. They do not get a point. If they, say Buttons was serving again, they hit it over, the underhand hit it over, these guys forget to let it bounce, they hit it back, play stops, Buttons gets a point. Again, you can only score while you're serving. So, another way to get points. You cannot let it double bounce. Again, like I said, when you hit it over, you have to let it, when you serve it, underhand, you gotta let it bounce once, then hit it. When they return it, they gotta let it bounce again, 2 bounce rule. But say they accidentally forget, it bounces twice, the play stops, and if they're the serving team, they get a point. If it goes over this side, they accidentally let it bounce twice. Serving team does not get a point, and the play stops and moves over to the next server. So what do I mean by moving over to the next server? When the serving team is serving, let's say they serve it underhand again, let it bounce, hit it, they let it bounce, they hit it, they volley it a bit, boom, 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 boom. The quarters team hits it, it bounces twice. They don't get points, but they stop the server from getting points. So this server passes it on to the next server. So, number 2 serving. So number 2 gets to serve. So when you're serving, each person gets a chance to serve, and no matter what. So number 1 got his chance, so his turn's over of earning points, or his turn is over of serving. It passes on to number 2. Number 2 now serves to the other number 2, and say they serve back and forth. Number 2, or the quarters hits it, Buttons hits it, it double bounces on this side. Number 2, he switches sides with the Buttons guy, and they get a point. They only switch sides once after you score with serving. So say, it's a weird rule. So basically, say number 1 was serving, he hits it back and forth, he scores a point, double bounce on their side, he switches sides with Buttons, and then they keep hitting, keep hitting, keep hitting, they stop serving. Let's see, it hits it, double bounce on this side, this guy gets to serve. Hit it, hit it, hit it, hit it. Double bounce on this side. These Buttons gets a point. They switch over. And now he's hitting from 2. It's a weird rule. Kind of confusing. But to recap, when you're serving, each person on the serving team gets to try to serve. So say, like I said, number 1, say if he messes up, and these guys are able to prevent them from scoring by either having this side double bounce. These guys hit it like unattainable, where they hit it over, it hits inside, they can't get it, it goes out, it switches to the next server. Also, lines are in. So unlike other sports where lines would be out, if it hits the line right here, then it would be count in, and you still have to play on it. So say number 1 hit it, it bounced in the line, it hit the line, this means Buttons would have to go and get it and hit it back, because if he doesn't, that means if they were serving, they would score a point. If they're not serving, it would move on to the next server. And if it doesn't move on to the next server, so say if it doesn't move on to the next server and number 2 is serving and they were able to, these guys were to prevent them from serving, it goes over here. Say, example, number 2 serving, so they get 2 chances. 1 already lost his chance to serve. 2's now serving. 2 serves it, messes up, it goes on to the other team. So again, you get 2 chances, or each person player gets a chance to serve, 1 and 2, and then if they can't able to get any points, the other team gets the ball. Okay, reading score. Reading score is a little difficult, a little confusing, but I'll help you out. So, the ways to score again are double bounces, they hit it inside, hit the line, and they don't get it. And you can only score if you're the serving team. So to read score, they do a system called me, you, who. Let's make this real quick. So, at the moment of the game, at the start of the game, Buttons is serving. They are the number 1 on the right side, so the first server. So how he would read the score before he serves it, it'd be 0, because it's him, like me. So say I'm Buttons, me, be 0, and then you would be the opposite team. So 0, 0, 1, because he's the number 1 server, the first server. Say they go back and forth. Buttons was able to score because he's the serving team. So and then it would be 1, 0, 1 because he's still the first server. And then he would switch sides if he scored. Go back and forth. If he scores another point, it'd be 2, 0, 1, and he would stay where he is at right there on the 2 side. And then let's say they are able to hit a nice shot. He loses his turn to serve. They don't score any points because they're not the serving team. It would go to the other guy. So, without being confused with this one right here, he is the second server because he is the second person. He would go to, the score would be, so minus these zeros. So, say they already scored the 1 point, it'd be, he would say 1, 0, 2 because he's the second server. And this guy right here is the first server. So say they go back and forth, their serving team scores, they would switch places, and then it would be, for the sake of it, they have 2 points. So he would say before he serves it, 2, 0, 2 again. And then let's say he serves it again, go back and forth. They're able to make a nice shot. He can't get it. So now it goes over to the next team. And so it would reset to like 2, or no, yeah, so it'd reset. It'd be 0, 2, 1. A little confusing again, but let's recap. So, before you serve, you call out the scores. Let's reset it to 0 again. So, the quarters team, it'd be 0, 0, 1. If they mess up and don't score, only the serving team can score. So, we'll just pass on to the next server. So, being this, number 2 is the next server. And so, if you couldn't score, pass on to the next server, because each server gets a try. And they keep going. The servers keep going. If they score points, they stay in the same, or they keep serving until they mess up, or the other team makes a good shot, and then they switch over, and the other server gets to try. So say the other server gets to try, they go, he calls up before his score, he calls 0-0-2, because he's the number 2 server. And you play to 11, you only score by 1s, and you have to win by 2. To recap, the court plays 20 by 40 feet within basically the small part of the tennis court. There's the no volley zone, volleying being hitting the ball in the air without it bouncing. You cannot step in the zone and volley it, but if it does touch, if it bounces first, you can step in it and hit it. There are 2 servers when you're playing doubles. There's the 1 server, the 2 server. Each server gets a chance to hit it and serve. You can only score by 1s. You have to play to 11, win by 2. When you serve, it has to bounce in your court at least once. So like again, they serve it underhand. You have to serve underhand. You serve it underhand. Has to bounce. They have to serve it. They have to return it. Has to bounce on their side. So each touches their side once. So 1, hit it back. 1, hit it back. 2, bounce, roll. Has to bounce twice in the court. Once on each side. Lines are in. So if it hits in, you have to go get it. If it's going to be a good, you have to get it because the lines are in. If it bounces twice, anywhere, it counts as a point. Or it counts as a point if it's a serving team, but the play stops if it bounces twice. And that's it. I hope you can enjoy pickleball. If you need any questions, please ask me.